Hi, welcome to this Excel tutorial video. Today I'm going to do a tips and tricks video focusing on particular aspects of Excel. I'm going to show you different ways of achieving certain outcomes, because in Excel there's always more than one way of achieving a particular goal. So in this video I'm going to look at how we can alter our column widths. I'm going to look at how we can add value totals, and I'm going to look at different ways of referencing cells. So first of all, let's look at column widths. So in this example here, I've got bits of text, and what I want to do is I want each of my columns to be wide enough to accommodate the most text of a particular whichever's got the most text in this cell. I want my column to be wide enough to display that, so it isn't going across multiple columns. And there's a few ways of doing that. So I can move my cursor up here. You can see my cursor changes to a left right arrow. I can now left click and I can drag across and try and determine it that way. Or I can highlight my column and I can right click and I can choose column width and I can type in a width. So looking at that, it's 13. Maybe if I make that 20, I think that's a little bit too wide. So the best option is to let Excel do it. And what I mean by that is, if I move my cursor up here, I've got my left right icon again. If I double click now, Excel will determine the width of this column. And if I do the same here with column C, it reduces it to the width of the cell with the most text, which in this case is sub 2. And if I now do this with column B, it goes huge. It goes too big. That's not really what I want. But these two headers here are part of column B and they are big. But really what I want is for the cell to be as wide as one of these dates. So what I can do is I can highlight maybe these three cells here, and I've got this option of merge and center, and if I click that, it makes this all one cell between columns B and D. And now I'm going to change my justification to be left justified. I also need to do it here. I can right click actually and go to format cells, and I can click on merge cells here and it will do the same thing. Okay, and now it hasn't done the centering, it's just merged the cells. Now that these are now seen to be a single cell, if I now double click this, it is now working at the width of column B and ignoring the wider merged cell widths. Okay, now let's go to totals. So I've got data here that I want to add totals here. I want to add totals here, and I want to add totals along the bottom here. And there's a few ways of doing that. So I can type in equals. In fact, no, I can click on this little button here that's called sum. If I click that, it will create the sum function, which basically adds cells together, and it will say, oh, I assume because of the position of this cell and the fact that there's numbers above, you want a summary of the numbers above, which is exactly right. So I'll press enter there, and if I go along to here and I do the same thing, it will say, I've got numbers to the left, I'm presuming that's what you want to sum, and press enter, and that is correct. Okay, I'm going to delete that one. Now if we look at that, we can see what sum is doing. So I can actually say, if I wanted to, equals sum C3 C6. So I can kind of type this if I wanted to achieve the same outcome. Also what we can do is we can highlight the whole lot of cells and click on that, and that will do that for us. That's nice and quick. Or if I highlight those cells again and we do Alt and equals, that does the same thing as well. Alt and equals. Nice. Or the last option here is we highlight the text, and when we highlight text we get this little box that pops up here about quick analysis. I've done a video on quick analysis separately, which I'll put a link to in the description of this. But what we can do in here, if I click on this little box, I've got this header called totals, I've got this option called sum, and when I press it, it adds a sum, and it does a little bit of formatting, makes it bold. So there's a few different ways of adding sums. Now if we go to cell referencing, I've got two values here. I've got a basic rate and a premium rate, and then I've got data values here. And let's say I want this to be basic rate, and this to be premium rate, and this to be basic rate, and this to be premium rate. I'm only putting these down here just to kind of show you that this is going to be basic, this is going to be premium. I'm not going to actually use those generally, but if I were to times my value by the basic rate in this example, I could say equals my value times basic rate. And then this is going to be times the premium rate, so I want to do my value times premium rate. Or I want to type it equals C8 times C3, and I'll finish it off. Now, that's kind of all very well, and it works, this solution. However, if we go down here and we look at our formula, it's not overly clear which C2 and which is C3 with regards to whether it's basic or premium. So what we can do is we can say, all right, this is cell C2, but actually I don't want it to be C2. I want to call it basic rate. This is cell C3, but I don't want it to be C3. I want to call it prem rate. Now, if we go to here, these are still referencing C2 and C3, but I'm going to create another header here, and I'm going to say equals that times, and I'm going to start typing basic, and you can see here I've got basic rate, and I can say equals that times, and there's premium rate. So now I'm actually referencing something that means a little bit more to me, and I can use that name as part of my formula. That's good for single cells, and I think that's really, really helpful generally. But also, one other thing you can do here, so I've got in this case just 5 values of the outcome of my value times whatever rate. So I've got this here. If I were to highlight those 5 values, I can then say this is my total rate. Now I've got something called total rate. If I just move my cursor to this cell, that's cell E10, that's cell E9, that's cell E8, but all together they become total rate. And I can use that, and I can say down here or here equals sum, and I can type total rate, and it knows what total rate is. Okay, that's the end of this tutorial. I hope those tips were useful. I hope there was something new, something that you didn't know. Any feedback or comments are appreciated. Thanks for your time. See you next time.